Yes, Mayor.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start today. Who has the prayer and
Commissioner Dick.
Commissioner Dick? Great. Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Dear God, thank you for allowing us to gather today and put forth your work as we do our things. Please help us make wise decisions, and please be with all of our first responders and our workforce around the area, and just keep them safe as they do their things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So we want to welcome everyone to today. We're excited that you're here. Again, this is our regular scheduled commission meeting. We're going to go ahead and open it for public comment. Again, we're allowing 5 minutes per spokesperson. If you need additional time, we ask that you contact C-Lin or the city offices so that we can get you on the schedule for something longer. But is there anyone who has some public comment that is not on the agenda already? Anyone that has any public comment? Again, keeping your comments to 5 minutes or less. Okay, with that, we'll move on.
The minutes.
Oh,
Maybe.
sorry, thank you.
But there's no change, no
There's no
changes
changes,
that I.
that's okay. Yep, so we want to go ahead and approval of the minutes, the last regular meeting, if there are any corrections. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? Okay, they will stand as approved. Okay, consideration of petition, memorials, and...
Remonstrances, 6A.
That's a hard word there. Remonstrances.
The governing body is asked to consider and allow the mayor to proclaim April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in Garden City, Kansas. And I believe,
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, glad I don't have to pronounce that word.
Is that a new word we put on there? So
I can pronounce Arbor Day. So
okay.
this is just an annual event that takes place with the city of Garden City. It's the last Friday in April. A couple of years ago, we did it right before a snowstorm, so we get different weather all the time. And so we had a wonderful welcome to Arbor Day that year. But so this year, we're looking at our 42nd consecutive year of being a Tree City USA community. And just a little bit for your background, for those of you who haven't been through the Arbor Day proclamation process, there's qualifications, and one is we have to have a tree board department, and we have an advisory board, and we have the second one is a tree care ordinance and a community forestry program where we have to budget $2 per capita, and we meet that requirement year in and year out fairly easily with different things that we do to take care of our trees in Garden City. And then an Arbor Day observation and proclamation. And so with that, what we do annually for that is a 5th grade poster contest. And the 5th graders in the town take the Kansas Forest Service requirements for this, submit those to the Park and Tree Board. They pass them up the line. The state winner goes to the Capitol and plants a tree on the Capitol grounds with the governor. And we do some other things here. The winners here in Garden City, we plant a tree at their school. And so we're just asking to proclaim our April 24th, 2020 is Arbor Day.
Thank you, Andy.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the proclamation as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? You're going to let Andy do that? Okay. Deb is deferring to Commissioner Ortiz. So is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Commissioner Sessom was reminding me of the time he planted it when it was the snowstorm. So I'm going to be believing for nicer weather. Matt?
under report of the city manager, there's several different staff reports. If there are any questions on any of those reports, we'd be happy to try to answer those. If not, we'll draw your attention to the meetings of note. Several coming up. There's a League of Kansas Municipalities Local Government Day. We'll have representatives there. Congressman Marshall has a town hall meeting Thursday morning. Back up to Topeka, January 27th for Southwest Kansas Night Out in Topeka. We have a tentative date and time for the joint meeting. It's my understanding through the grapevine that maybe the start time is going to move up a little bit to 10 a.m. based on some conversations that folks heard at the county commission meeting yesterday. If that's okay with you, we will we'll publish notice. Actually, maybe the county will publish public notice, or we both do. I'm not sure. But we'll do that based on a 10 a.m. start time if that is indeed what they decided yesterday. And just dress warm for that. The first part of it's going to be a field trip out to the proposed county park at Wildwood. It's called Wildwood, out on the southwest edge of town.
Any questions about the meetings of note or anything that you need? So if there is anything, I know that you want to make sure you attend, you have any questions, Seelin does an awesome job of keeping us as commissioners informed, and she even sends us calendar reminders. Thank you, Seelin. I want to publicly thank you for that. So we're going to go move on to item item 9?
9A, yep, this is the appropriation ordinance, and if approved, it would be ordinance number 2499-2020A.
I move that we approve appropriation ordinance 2499, 2020A.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Item 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a resolution designating banking institutions to be used as depositories for the city's public funds. If approved, this would be resolution number 2843-2020. Melinda?
This resolution designates the banks that we can put city funds in, and basically it's every bank that's in the city limits of the city of Garden City. Some banks wish not to have public funds because they do have to provide pledging if they go over the FDIC amount. So we give the opportunity to every bank within the city limits, and it's their choice. So we do this annually for the audit so that the auditors know that you have approved all the banks within the city limits.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2843-2020.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11A, Bernie Reitz, Kansas Honor Flight Fund volunteer, requests the governing body consider the City of Garden City Recycle Center to donate all the aluminum cans collected from the city's aluminum can recycling program to the Kansas Honor Flight program for a period of 1 year. Sam?
Andy.
Andy's there.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'll go ahead and read through it. Bernie Reitz, the Kansas Honor Flight Fund volunteer, requests the governing body consider the City of Garden City Recycle Center to donate all aluminum cans collected from the city's aluminum can recycling program. The city received this request from Ms. Reitz, a volunteer raising money for the Kansas Honor Flight Fund. The request is asking the city to consider using the revenue received from aluminum cans collected at the City Recycling Center for a period of 6 months to 1 year to assist in this fundraising campaign. The funds would be used to send Kansas veterans to Washington, D.C. to visit their respective memorials. Currently, it costs $800 to send one veteran to Washington, D.C. Ms. Reitz also made the request to place containers in the community to increase participation with assistance from the city for containers and locations. At this time, it is understood Ms. Reitz may approach some local business owners for the individual participation in this campaign separate from the city. To date, and I've spoken with Ms. Reitz, and she's here today, that the American Legion is going to join her in this, and they're going to have they're working on getting a container for collecting inside their property. So a few observations that we have and some information that you need to know. The City of Garden City Recycling Center collects an average of 2.1 tons or 4,200 pounds of aluminum cans per year. The current price for paid aluminum cans as December 3, 2019 is 15 cents per pound. The Garden City Recycling Center has averaged $630 per year in aluminum can revenue over the last 5 years. This request, and one of the things that we have in here in 3 is this request may set a precedent to encourage other organizations to seek use of other city revenue streams to support their cause, and money donated to the Kansas Honor Flight Fund will help veterans across Kansas. And there's a few facts about the Honor Flight below that, and since its inception in 2012, Kansas Honor Flight has provided 2,569 Kansas veterans with air transportation to Washington, D.C., and the trip is free to qualified veterans. Priority is given to veterans of World War II, followed by the Korean War and the Vietnam War. And at the website below, you can find more information on that. This was brought to the Public Utilities Advisory Board, and the recommendation is to direct the governing body, recommends the governing body to direct staff to work with Bernie Reitz, Kansas Honor Flight volunteer, to donate all aluminum cans collected, not the revenue, through the city's current recycling program for the Kansas Honor Flight program for a period of 1 year. And the alternatives that we have, and we're going to introduce, Randy's going to introduce some thoughts that he has along this when I'm done with the alternatives, is to direct staff to work with Bernie Reitz, Kansas Honor Flight volunteer, to donate all the aluminum cans collected, not revenue, from the city's aluminum can recycling program for the Kansas Honor Flight program for a period of 1 year. Alternative 2, direct staff to process and sell the aluminum cans from the city's aluminum can recycling program and donate revenue to the Kansas Honor Flight for a period of 1 year. Or 3, direct staff to other alternatives. And the recommendation from the Utilities Board is to direct staff on alternative 1 to work with Ms. Reitz, Kansas Honor Flight volunteer, to donate the aluminum cans collected, not the revenue, from the city's aluminum can recycling program for the Kansas Honor Flight program for a period of 1 year. Randy?
I think Andy or Sam called me it might have been Friday, to address this issue and see if I had any concerns, and normally that's enough time, but we're looking at whether or not there are any legal impediments to this proposed project. There's an AG opinion that says that a public entity, a city, a school district, cannot give away public property without adequate consideration, which is money or something of value, or it has to be for a public purpose. For example, the city could give away real estate if it was going to be used as a park for the public. A private individual or business were going to develop the real property for a park open to the public, that would be lawful. I don't know that we can't work through this, but at this point I do have a concern about just giving the cans to this entity, because once we take possession of the cans, as absurd as it may seem, they become public property, and then to just give those away, it has some issue attached to it. There may be a situation where if the entity places private collection containers someplace and those cans never become the property of the city, then I think that would be okay, as long as the city is approving the loss of this income for however long we work with this entity. Or if Kansas Honor Flight Fund works directly with private businesses, then again, we never obtain possession of the property, and therefore there's no issue. So I'm not saying we can't work through this, I'm just saying I need to look at it a little bit longer. I think this is consistent with an opinion I rendered a few years ago with a similar situation.
And for the commission's benefit, the discussions internally heading up to the Public Utility Advisory Board meeting were based off the memory and recollection of that opinion and just kind of a general understanding in local government that local governments don't make donations. The idea behind the cans versus the revenue was twofold. One is maybe an alternative to no donations, although Randy's understands that opinion with a lot more detail than I do, and you should trust his judgment on that. The other reason is, from a practical standpoint, if we were giving away our net revenue, the Honor Flight would be writing us a check, and
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what-
that isn't their intent, right?
Right.
We do receive a revenue off of that, but it doesn't offset the expense for discarding it. So one of the theories here is, in as much as the end use of the dollars that could be generated off of recycling those cans by the Kansas Honor Flight, for us, it would be an alternative way to dispose of the aluminum cans that would be less expensive to us than the way we dispose of them now. By letting them have it at no charge, it is a more beneficial disposal of the cans. Now, did we dispose of those cans? Yes, as Randy mentioned, absurd as it sounds, public property at that point. Is that something that we can do that and not have it be a competitive or public notice process? And Randy's gonna have to sort through some of that, but from a practical standpoint, the recommendation coming out of the Utility Advisory Board was, I believe, one that was, maybe seeing this as much as a more sensible way to get rid of the aluminum cans as it was a donation, quote unquote.
Well, and so, and I think that, so Ms. Reitz, if you receive the cans, have you already investigated a way to have those recycled and for income to be turned from those?
Yes, I have. I've checked with the F&F Recycling Company here in Garden, and they are willing to take them and give the funds, even the public can bring them in, and give the funds to the Kansas Honor Flight. So I have an agreement with them. So we would be able to dispose them. They would even pick them up at the recycle center for us.
So I'm not really sure how to move forward.
I'd like to just table this item until we get further legal direction from council on this, before we render, as one commissioner, before I would render a decision. I'd like to have council look at it a little more in depth and then give us their legal opinion on it, from my standpoint.
Well, and the follow-up for me is, what happens in year two? I mean, is this, I mean, it is a government, I mean, as it stands, it would be a City of Garden City stream of revenue for a nonprofit organization. How do you sort who gets that stream of revenue? And who's gonna take
Yeah,
so,
the precedent, I think
yeah, and
that's.
so there's a precedent that's being set that I think should be kind of hashed out before we agree to get into this business of kind of dedicating things that we've been bringing in and giving it to somebody else, but.
And I know we all do appreciate what the Kansas Honor Flight does, and we want to honor our veterans. We just want to make sure that this is the correct way and that it's a blessing, not a, again, then that revenue would be what we charge. So I'm not really, any other comments before we entertain a motion?
I just agree with what Commissioner Dick says.
I might make a plug. I think this is related. If it's not, you can stop me. We ran into this, not specifically with the Honor Flight, but with groups that were interested in accessing funds for purposes that a lot of people would say are worthwhile purposes, but they weren't specific to the mission of the City of Garden City. And out of that, we created the community grant. And just so happens to be, and there's really not much definition to what's eligible. I mean, it casts a broad net, and I believe the community grant applications are out on the street now, I think. So folks can fill out those and request a certain amount of funds. It is competitive. There is in most years, more money requested than money awarded. But there's a committee that reviews those applications. And so that is a proper way to dispose of public funds. And it's a set amount, and the commission ultimately makes the final decision on what that grouping looks like after they've heard that recommendation. So as maybe a plan B for Kansas Honor Flight, I would encourage them to fill out one of those applications.
So, Ms. Reese, we appreciate you coming, and is there anything else that you wanted to say? I think we have a consensus about, in just a moment, we'll probably table the motion, but do you have anything else that you wanted to add? I know you're here today, and so we appreciate you coming.
I don't, but maybe our coordinator for Kansas Honor Flight might.
Rosemary.
I just want to thank you for even considering it.
Yeah, well, thank you. It works great.
We had our Western Kansas big fundraiser Saturday and raised $18,000.
Congratulations. Wow.
That's 22 veterans, that's one flight. We're doing 14 next year, so. And obviously, Western Kansas has less veterans going because we're less populated, but we had 40 to 50 veterans that came back that had been on the trip, and it just means a lot to them. I can't express. So I appeal to you individually, just personally, if you've never donated before, think of a veteran that you would have liked to have seen gone, and some of them don't get to go. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you for your time. So I would entertain a motion.
You want to just
we
direct
need-
staff to work on it?
Yes.
We'd like to table this, yeah, if possible. Let's direct staff to work on this.
Okay, thanks.
That's it.
Okay, great.
Item 12A, the governing
Thank you.
body is asked to reconsider, reappoint, or not reconsider. The governing- Sorry, Larry. The governing body is asked to consider reappointing Larry Guyer as a city representative to the Finney County Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors.
And Shannon is going to Commissioner Dick is going to step down for this.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Larry Guyer as the city representative to Finney County Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay?
Mayor and Commissioners, item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an amendment to the development agreement for the Chapel Heights Third Edition to allow the building of homes with conditions prior to the acceptance of the streets. Carol?
Thank you. Okay, before I begin, you should have an updated memo before you. Let me just kind of go over what we've got going on here. In Chapel Heights 3, our subdivision regulations prevents a developer from actually putting in homes before the infrastructure has been completely completed and accepted by the city. So in this situation, the Chapel Heights 3, we do have a builder that would like to start building, and so to we are here before you today because we need to amend the development agreements that states, we are asking to not follow the subdivision regulations which requires this. So that's what this is. Now, in the original memo, we did have 2 conditions by staff. I guess I should explain the situation out there in Chapel Heights. Everything is in, all of the infrastructure is in except for the final lift on the asphalt. And so the curb gutter, everything, all utilities are in. There is a small lip on the top of the asphalt waiting for that final layer. There's 2 issues that come up if you start building without putting this lip, and one of them is you can get water damage, and then the second one is heavy equipment on the road can ruin the base. So that's why we have 2 conditions. The first condition would kind of take care of the heavy equipment by extending the maintenance bond to 2 years. And then the second one would be that staff would inspect the first layer before they put the top layer on it, the asphalt, to make sure that there isn't any water, and because that's usually the big problem. So in talking with the applicant or the Bernard Chapel on this situation, he didn't feel comfortable with the 2-year bond, so he asked if there was any other way. Staff did meet with them and discuss this other alternative, and that's in your memo your amended memo that you have. Alternative number 3 would actually replace alternative number 2, or number 1, if the commission desires to do that. That one allows for the developer to put in a barricade so that nobody drives on this road without that final lift. The barricade will prevent any heavy traffic. So if that's the case, if nobody's driving on this road, staff feels okay that we just have a 1-year typical maintenance bond as opposed to a 2-year. So before you, I know it's kind of a lot of options there, but so there's basically 2 conditions. I'm just going to read this last paragraph. It says, staff has reviewed the request by the developer and would allow for the homes to be built before the acceptance of the street infrastructure with 2 conditions. The 2 conditions are shown below as items 1 and 2. However, the commission may choose items 2 and 3 as an alternative to items 1 and 2. So those are the options you have before you, and if you have any questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them.
So I guess there's already asphalt there, it just needs the final layer.
final
How long will
layer.
it take that to,
The
I mean, if,
The final layer, unfortunately, the asphalt plants are closed at this time. They close once it starts getting cold. The base layer, or the layer that's on there now, it needs to be at least 60 degrees before they put that final layer on. So we're looking March, April, depending on the weather,
okay.
when this would be done. Now, if they do start building homes, they will not be able to get a certificate of occupancy until that final layer is on, because nobody will be able to drive on that.
So is there,
is
Carol
there-
and Sam, the sufficient access, and I'm looking at the map here, it appears there is to me, for a strategy where the road would be off limits? There's sufficient access through, like the alleys to access each of those lots, and then it's just a matter of convincing contractors with either physical barricades or I guess some sort of threat of action or something that keeps them off of that, right?
Correct.
So is there's an alley here, which is on the north end, an alley on the south end, and then is there an alley behind these 4, or would those 4 lots maybe not get developed until afterwards?
I believe we do have an alley in that behind
Okay,
us.
it wraps around? Okay.
Yes.
So where are the proposed homes? Are they going to be built near which side of the, do you know where they're going to start the
At this
homes?
time, I don't know.
Most of them are on at this point in time.
John, would you want to come up to the microphone, please?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Most of the homes are on the south side, but they would be, eventually it would be north and south. Sam has been pretty good. He says he'd help me on putting barricade up to make sure that we don't have people driving on that asphalt. Actually, the center deal through the center with the roundabout is concrete now. So, so that won't be said. It's basically, if you kind of look there, that's the wide part right there. So basically, we won't go on any of those streets going east and west there and there.
Okay.
And what it does, it just lets them get started. We've got a need for a lower priced house, and that's what these are in place for. And, it's like I said, we're a little bit at Mother Nature's deal. I mean, unfortunately, if the weather warmed up, we could get it in there, but your guess is as good as mine on what day that would be.
Yeah, Sunday and then today.
Yeah.
And so this should only affect the construction vehicles of the project, correct?
Right,
It-
yeah, because we won't have any homeowners going in
Right.
until, like they say, until that's done, because we wouldn't be able to get a final anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it takes 120 days.
Yeah.
So surely by that time, we'd be able to get
Be able to get that in there.
that in.
Any further questions for Mr. Chappell or Carol while they're here? So I'd entertain a motion.
All right, well, I move that we approve amendment to Chapel Heights Third Edition Development Agreement using conditions 2 and 3 as proposed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve using conditions 2 and 3. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you,
Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, John.
Item C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the bid from Virginia, Georgia Transformer for the purchase of 2 substation transformers. Mike?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. These are 2 very large substation transformers, and kind of lead you up to this a little bit. This has been budgeted for. It's part of our bond account that we did, part of the Wheatland acquisition stuff. So you've given authority for all of that already, but it's a large amount. It's $1.9 million. So wanted to make sure that you were aware of what we're doing here. We did bid it out. We received 9 bids for these 2 large transformers. They were opened at 2 o'clock on December 26th at the Utility Service Center. 3 of the bids did not meet the minimum specifications, so they're not included, they weren't considered. We had Keywood Engineering and then city staff did a life cycle cost analysis on both transformers from all of the bidders that had a good bid. And what a transformer life cycle cost is we look at what does it cost to run that transformer for the life of the transformer. When you energize a transformer this large, it consumes energy just to be energized, so there's a value to that. And it's commonplace to everybody, that's the way you cost out substation transformers of this size. Anyway, we did the analysis, and the analysis deemed that the most cost-effective option would be from the Virginia, Georgia transformer. These 2 transformers, like I stated earlier, will be used as part of the Wheatland acquisition project. One of them will go in the Garden City North substation, and then one of them will replace the existing transformer in the Morris substation. Bid time on these, it takes 34 to 36 weeks to get it, and the life cycle cost award, you can see, is $3,799,250. That's about $48,000. Well, there's no sense getting into that number, but you can see what that number is versus if it was Howard Industries, which has the straight up bid base low, 4.1 million, so there's $300 and some thousand difference there. The engineer's estimate was $1,930,000 for both transformers, and it's well within the 2% of our financial guidelines. So staff recommends that you award the bid to Virginia, Georgia Transformer in the amount of $1,956,543.71. And I'll answer any other questions you have. The financing obviously is in this account. We have $3 million in that bond account, so that $1.9 million will come out of that account.
Might point out that customarily budgeted items where we're recommending the apparent low bid wouldn't be put on a business item, it'd be put on consent agenda. However, given the nature that this was part of the Wheatland acquisition, speaking to some of the expenses related to that, and that it was the price that it was, we felt it warranted a little bit of discussion, but just so you can be reassured, there's nothing abnormal about this bid.
No, thank you for pointing it out. And then I
Other than
think
being
the life cycle
abnormally large.
cost, that's really good information. Any other questions for Mike?
I make a motion, we approve the bid from Virginia, Georgia Transformer in the amount of $1,956,543.71.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the recommendation to the United States Department of Transportation to accept the proposal from American Airlines to provide essential air service at Garden City Regional Airport. Rochelle?
Good afternoon. Every 2 years, the Department of Transportation seeks proposals from airlines to provide essential air service to our community and communities around the nation. American Airlines was the only proposal that was presented to the Department of Transportation, which you may find in your attachment. And basically, it's continuing the same service as they have since 2012, services for another 2-year period starting in August through July of 2022. American's typical request is that the community does waive the right to hold them in for service for 120 days. Typically, the Department of Transportation, if an airline was going to withdraw service from a community, they require that airline to stay for 120 days so they can seek additional service to come back and fill in. But American and their normal proposals ask that the community waives that. So we're asking your consideration to approve the proposal from American Airlines to provide regional jet service to Garden City with daily service to Dallas, Fort Worth.
So if we don't waive that, then does that mean their proposal isn't accepted, or is it?
We would probably have to go back to the drawing board with them. It's just in their normal proposals that they do that.
And we've done that in the past.
We've always waived that, yep. And good on our behalf, our subsidy that when we originally started with service back in 2012 was $3.2 million, an annual subsidy, and now we're just shy of 800,000 coming in. So it's showing that the service is a success. The airline does not need that much more subsidy to be able to provide service to our community.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the recommendation to the United States Department of Transportation to accept the proposal from American Airlines to provide essential air service to Garden City Regional Airport.
That's a great motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you. Good job.
Item E, the governing body is asked to consider and approve task order number 1 between the City of Garden City and HNTB for the airfield remarking project at Garden City Regional Airport, Airport Improvement Program AIP 3-2000-2443.
Welcome back.
Rochelle?
Thank you. So just a quick update for the new commissioners and kind of a refresher for the current commission. Every year we do AIP projects, which if we get 10,000 employments, we get $1 million entitlement fund to do projects throughout the year. Our subsidy or our requirement either goes from 10% city match or 5% city match when the community is economically disadvantaged. Right now, the Department of Transportation does consider us economically disadvantaged. So at this point, our match is 5% of AIP projects. So what happens is we signed a master agreement with HNTB, who's our airfield engineer. You approved that at your last meeting in January. And every time we have a project come up, there's a task order that you consider, and it's basically for bidding and construction services. They handle the project for us. So that's what you're looking at right now is in front of you is a task order. This is under 100,000, so the FAA provides us guidelines on how to do a cost analysis on it. So that's also provided for you for consideration, but we do find their proposed cost reasonable, and we ask that you approve the task order to start this project, which will probably be under construction late fall. It is an airfield remarking project that will consist of removing and remarking both runways and a variety of other markings across the airfield to an estimated tune of almost $2 million. So it is a massive project, but it's definitely needed. As if you can remember our last couple of FAA inspections, we've been dinged on marking because we just repaint and repaint and repaint and just add layers and causes flaking. So this will remove everything, bring it back to scratch, and then start the process over.
How long will it take to complete the project if it's approved?
At this point, it's probably a 6-week process.
Oh, that's quick, okay.
Yeah. Once we get started.
Any further discussion or questions for Rochelle? I entertain a motion.
I move that we approve task order number 1 between the City of Garden City and HNTB.
So it's been moved. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item F, the governing body is asked to consider and approve bids for the Garden City Police Department vehicles. Chief?
Unfortunately, you get capped.
Captain? Right when I said
That's
that.
officer approved,
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here to answer some questions. Typically, when we do our bids, it's a consent agenda item. We took it off the consent agenda. It's on new business because we're kind of deviating for cause, and I'm here to answer any questions about that. The deviation is we're going to we're asking to buy one hybrid vehicle along with the 6 other of the typical vehicles that we normally buy. So with that, are there any questions about why and what we're doing, what we're planning?
You might just explain why.
I can. So Ford last year came out with a hybrid vehicle for law enforcement, kind of the first in the market. We didn't go with it last year because it's new. So we thought this year, because they're claiming that it's going to save some money on fuel economy, and not really typically just miles per gallon, but we have vehicles that idle quite a bit. When we go on scene, we leave them running because we need air conditioner and we need our stuff to stay charged, computers, radars, that type of thing. And if we shut them off, it kills our batteries pretty quick. Ford Motor Company's come out with a hybrid that they say is going to address that, and the vehicle will be off. It won't be running when it is an idle, and it'll use a battery pack to keep that stuff charged. And then if it gets too low, it will start the vehicle up to recharge that battery pack. And they're claiming about $3,500 in fuel economy savings. So that's very interesting to us and other law enforcement agencies, so we want to see what that's all about.
Will it be able to be serviced locally, or you have to get additional training or anything like that, or?
It should be able to be serviced locally. It's a typical law enforcement vehicle, so fleet maintenance does the what we would call the basic level stuff, and if it gets to the point where it needs computers and that type of thing, it goes to the dealership.
Any other questions?
I know there was a request for 6 of them and then one. Why is it just one of the hybrids? I know there's just a test, but
Right.
why
Just
not
to test
3
it.
and 3?
The cost is a little bit more. It's about $3,000 more than we're trying to stay within a budget. So just getting one, keep us in the budget, and we can test it and see if it's a viable option in the future.
I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the 6 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles and 1 Police Ford Interceptor hybrid vehicle from Burtis Motor Company.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't anticipate any action being required after item G. So if you want to save that for the end, we can do the consent agenda and then the commission reports. That's acceptable. We're ready for the consent agenda then, and there's no changes to that. So the appropriate motion would be to approve consent agenda item 1 through 3.
I move that we approve consent agenda items H1 through 3.
So it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda items H1 through 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. So we're ready for commissioner reports, and then we will go into executive session. Commissioner Dick, are you ready?
Yes, first I'd like to just reiterate the great work the Honor Flight does. That is a really good organization, and they post some really good videos on YouTube about some of the veterans that they help, and it's really neat to watch. The other thing I enjoyed the pre-meeting when we were talking about a comprehensive plan and starting to work on that. That's a really important document for us and as we go forward. And because as you know, we write our own destiny and we become what we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cessna.
Great to see the new commissioners at their first meeting, and look forward to great things happening, with the 5 of us moving forward on this commission. As Commissioner Dick said, it was a great pre-meeting. It's good to see kind of how we've planned back 10 years ago and how it's kind of moved forward and how we progressed, and then, asking to get input from the community on how we need to move forward and make Garden City a better place. So a lot of good input to get things kind of started and rolling on that. So look forward to it.
Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz.
Yeah, thanks this morning for the pre-meeting. That was interesting information, and I think Garden City's on a great path, as we have been for a while. So, but we do ask that you just keep involved in the city and look for those ways to get involved. That is truly needed. Also, with the census coming up, I'd like to just push that again also, getting that out there as far as just getting people involved in that. So just getting everybody involved is great for Garden City, so just push forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Euler.
Well, I look forward to serving in this next year as well. Over the weekend, I attended, the CVB had their hospitality evening, and it was well attended, and it kind of reminded me of how proud we all should be of promoting tourism, but also just promoting Finney County and Garden City. And after, attending the Economic Development Annual Meeting and then going to this, it really did kind of leave me feeling energized to be a part of this, and how we should not apologize when somebody comes to Garden City, but instead we should say, hey, we're glad you're here. What can we do to help you? So, and I also wanted to echo what Commissioner Ortiz said about community involvement and how important that is, in all of the processes. And I look forward to being able to be a part of that too.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for the pre-meeting was very excellent. We are excited about the next comprehensive plan and getting started with that. The Kansas Honor Flight, that is just it's a neat way to honor our veterans, but it's also a way that they're changing these men and women's lives who have served us so faithfully. So really appreciate that. We're looking forward, hopefully encouraging them to apply for to get on for the city grants. I also was able to attend the Convention and Visitors Bureau's the hospitality dinner. The dessert was, if you guys, I'm sorry, I feel bad for y'all that missed that, but I didn't eat a lot. I ate some. But it reminded me too that we really are in the business of actively recruiting people to our community. And so as people come into our community, whether for an event or whether they're coming to visit, I'll tell you, we have that responsibility to actively recruit. Our workforce and what we have to offer here is incredible. So I'm excited about this next year, and thank you all for helping and being patient, helping remind me to, make sure I do what I'm supposed to do as mayor. Also, I know that Matt's going to be traveling today, and I'm also, the Kansas Health Foundation has now got a new Reggie, what was his last?
Robinson.
Reggie Robinson is now the Kansas Health Foundation, and Matt, our city manager, has served on their board, and I think you're the chair, is that correct? And so I'll tell you, there are incredible people doing incredible things throughout Kansas in our community. So anytime you get a chance to visit with people and find out what they're up to, we're all going to be surprised. So with that, thank you for your time, and we're going to go ahead and go into executive session.
Yeah, we'll need a motion to do that, and it's listed there in item G. The exception that you're using to the Open Meetings Act is KSA 7543-19B2, which pertains to the consultation with an attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship. The specific reason is for contract and negotiations. And I think the two people that are we'd ask to be with the commission in this executive session are Assistant City Manager Cunningham and Randy Grizel.
You won't be in it? And how long?
You think 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think we could easily do it.
Okay.
So we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we go into executive session pursuant to KSA 7543-19B2 pertaining to consultation with attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the client-attorney relationship pursuant to contract negotiations with Assistant City Manager Jennifer Cunningham and Legal Counsel Randy Grizel in attendance, and that will be for 15 minutes. Do we want to take a break or just start?
If we could start can we start 1:55 and then that way?
We'll start at 1:55 for 15 minutes.
Okay, with that, we call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Go ahead and,
I've got a motion. Do we have a second? Sorry.
I'll
I'm really good at these. So it's been motioned and seconded. Any other further discussion?
At 1:55.
Right, at 1:55. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
And you can gavel out after the executive session, but for right now, we'll
Yeah,
shut
we're
down.
still in the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Travel safe.